Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to the pod, whether you're listening on Sirius XM, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast with the Believe Network, or watching on Sports Talk Chicago. We got a great guest, but first we got to say hi to my co-host. He's the man himself, former Bears defensive end, former Northwestern 5-5 Northwestern standout, and West End Golf Club's very own. It's Corey Wooten with Corey.
Hey, what's going on, Joey? Man, another great week, right? Football. Justin Fields is back. We get to see what he can do against a good Detroit team. So I'm looking forward to this week, right? I think everybody's looking forward to this. This Bears season's been so up and down, but I think there's a lot that a lot of these players are playing for at this point for their future. So it's gonna be fun to see.
And who better to talk about it than our first-time guest here on today? I'm so excited to have him because this guy for the last 2 decades has been one of the most impactful voices in Chicago sports. You can listen to him daily from 2 to 6 Central on the Waddle and Silvy Show with America's sweetheart, Tom Waddle, or listen to it on the podcast out in California like I do on the daily. I also really greatly enjoyed his written work this year for Bears Insider. He is Silvy Strong. We're honored to have him on the show. It's Marc Silverman. Marc, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Guys, it's a pleasure. Excited to talk some Bears.
Yeah, let's dive right in. I'm going to tee it up, and then Corey, we're going to let Marc go first, and then you're going to jump right in on this one. So right here on Believe in Bears, we've been talking about this as kind of like a rebirth. This is kind of week one in a weird way, and we are super excited because a 3-7 team, how does that happen? But Khalil Herbert, full participant today. We're going to have a running back room that's healthy. The offensive line that was penciled in during training camp is expected to play in the first snaps of this whole season, and you've got Justin Fields coming back. So, Marc, just tee us off here, get us started here. What do you expect for these next 7 games? And are you kind of treating it like this? This is a whole kind of new season to evaluate Justin Fields and the Bears?
Yeah. It's and evaluate everyone, really. And let's hope that this opening day goes better than the first opening day against the Green Bay Packers when we had the optimism going into that game, right? But yeah, I mean, this is what we've got now. There's a huge decision coming up. Currently, the Bears hold the number 1 overall draft pick. And like what I always tell people, and a lot of people get it twisted where they think I want Justin Fields gone. I don't. I've always said that the reason why you have this expiration date at the end of the year is because you have the number 1 pick or the 2 pick, whatever Carolina's pick is going to be. And you have a decision to make with this great quarterback class. If you didn't have this number 1 or number 2 pick, whatever it's going to be, you would probably go into year 4 with Justin Fields and just continue to let him grow. But I think now we have to speed up to get the answer. We have got to know if this is somebody that we're going to live with for the next year or 2, and can he continue to make strides? And Washington was good. Denver was pretty good. The Vikings start wasn't good. And we need to see him clean up some of the things in these next 7 games. And why not against Detroit? A really good team, but a team that, as you guys know, you can score against. They haven't gotten home on the pass rush, and Justin Herbert just put up points. So let's see Fields go in there with that healthy offensive line, Joey, that you mentioned. A good running game, wide receivers who can get open. So let's see if they can keep pace with this really good Ben Johnson offense.
Yeah, I'm excited for this week. And Sylvia, a big thing for me, whatever quarterback was out there, whether it was Justin Fields or Bagent, I just feel like the play calling had been awful from Luke Getsy, with the exception of the Denver game. The Washington game was probably his best. And then the Raiders game, I thought he called a great game. He had a great game plan, mix and match the run and pass. And especially with Bagent being in there in his first game, he really took the pressure off him. And then the following week after that, it goes on a big stage, Sunday Night Football. And what does he do? He has him air the ball out 40 plus times. So I'm kind of just scratching my head. And I'm just wondering, like, in this quarterback situation, if Josh Allen or any other quarterback that's been successful in the league, if they're in this system, would they be playing well? That's what I'm asking myself at times, because I think the scheme and play calling has handcuffed both quarterbacks at times. So I think we don't get a chance to get a full picture. And I think that's the most frustrating part, because everybody had such high hopes and expectations for this offense, and it's failed miserably, right? Because we thought We have our franchise quarterback. We have all these weapons. We've kind of solidified, an offensive tackle in Darnell Wright. We got Davis. Tevin Jenkins is back for another year. And then all of a sudden, some injuries here and there, bad play calling. And it almost seems like up to this point, it's kind of been a waste of a season in a sense, especially offensively. So it's kind of, I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts about what you thought game plan wise with Luke Getsy and company.
Well, I think a lot of the points are valid. You as a former player and me who's covered this team now for 25 years, I don't know if I could really name any play callers the Bears have had that were beloved. Like, I think maybe the closest that we got was Ron Turner, the first time with Wani and still the second time he was okay. But I think as we go through Bears history, like whether it was Mike Tice, whether Mike
John Shoop.
John Shoop was always everyone's favorite. I once took John Shoop to a Bulls game, and we sat in the suite together when I was a reporter. Like, there's so many. Terry Shea was Lovey's first. He got fired after his first year. And the point is, I just think that the OC is always going to get second guessed. But I think a lot of it is fair what you bring up. I also think it's fair to say that what Justin had to do is what I've called, snap gymnastics, that no quarterback should ever have to do gymnastics when the shotgun snap is being delivered. Like Cody Whitehair's snapping was ridiculous. It's hard enough for Justin have to figure out what's going on where not everyone's healthy on the offensive line. How am I going to score? I've got the pass rush coming in my face, but now I've got to worry, is the football actually going to be where it's supposed to be, or is it going to be down at my shoes? Is it going to be up over my head? But all that being said, Corey, I still go to, is Fields being the solution enough? And what I need to see for me with all, and I come at it, I am someone who just wants the quarterback to be great. And I learned from Cuddy. You played with Cuddy, didn't you?
Yeah, all 4 years with him. Yeah.
So I learned from Cuddy because there were times where I protected him. We had cut Cutler's show and Waddle even longer than me. And then when McCown came in and started to do some stuff, I'm like, why does McCown, the journeyman, make it look just as good, if not better? It shouldn't be this way. And I'm like, damn, I was too biased to wanting Jay to get it right. So I'm just looking at this not as a Justin fan, not as a wanting to draft a quarterback fan. I just want the Bears to get it right. So my point of all this is to say, he needs to be more of a solution. Justin, with all the stuff, even though the wind may be in his face, even though Getsy may not be long for the job, even though the snaps has sucked, even though the offensive line hasn't been totally healthy, I still need, if Justin Fields is going to be the answer, he really needs to be the answer and be more of a solution guy than he's been in the past. Does that make sense?
So Marc, my follow-up question to that is a little bit of a broad angle of, what does that look like? Now, you've said you've been covering the team for 25 years. And one of my dreams as a Chicago Bears fan is that one day a reporter comes back and comes onto your show and goes, hey, how did the quarterback look in training camp? And the guy goes, he looked damn good. Because I remember, one of my favorite journalists of all time, Jeff Dickerson, he'd come on and be like, how's the new guy look at training camp? And it'd be a little, 2019 Trubisky, he's going to take off Maserati Mitch. How does he look in training camp? I remember you reported on the air this year that you saw some up and down from Justin in training camp. And that is my dream as a Bears fan. So over these last 7 games, Marc, what does it look like for you to at least have Justin Fields make a case that he can remain the face of the franchise? Is it stats? Is it situation? Is it wins? Is it the combo platter? What is it for you?
Yeah. And that was a good JD impersonation too. So we got to tie. Not looking so
guys.
Good. Yeah, guys. Not looking so good. And my dream is, and I always say it on the air, that I've gotten everything as a Chicago sports fan. I've seen the Bulls win titles. I've seen the Hawks win 3 recently. Finally got my Cubs to win championships. I was around for the 85 Super Bowl here. I've gotten to see everything. The White Sox, even though I'm not a White Sox fan. The one thing I've never seen is in this town, a quarterback who's beloved by everybody, and that's like, so going to what you said, Joey, about when we say he's great, that Corey loves him, I love him, Joey loves him, all the fans listening to the pod loves him, and we're not arguing, is he the guy or is he not the guy? That we're like, we got the guy, let's argue about some other stuff. And we finally can rally around that guy. But, okay, so here's what I listed as to what I want to see. I want to see more on time. I want to see somebody who goes through his progressions, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to see someone who doesn't take as many sacks. The one thing that Bajan did do for anybody, not an undrafted rookie, for anybody, he only was sacked 4 times. I don't want to see Justin sacked as much. I want the ball to come out, or I want him to make a decision quicker and to fit it in. I want him to be more accurate, and I want him to limit the turnovers. And then finally, the last 2 points, I want better performances in the fourth quarter. I need that closing kick. I need him, even in the Washington game, when they had the big lead, they were almost giving it back. And, that one pass to DJ Moore went for a touchdown, was close to an interception, and the performance wasn't great in the second half. The performance against Denver in the second half, even though there were other areas that weren't good and they blew the game because of those, the offense still could have been better. So better fourth quarter, and I need wins. And I looked at the schedule, and something I brought up, Joey, on today's show was in my book, there are 3 or 4 games that they could and should win. And especially those games at the end, like you should beat Atlanta at home. You should beat the Cardinals at home. That Packers team sucks in my view. That's the last game of the season. Can you win one of these next 4, 2 against Detroit, 1 against Minnesota, and then that Cleveland game who's playing their 3rd string quarterback? Can you win one of those 4? So if you can beat those 3 teams at the end, can you win one of these? Can you go 4-3 down the stretch? If he can, and he can do those other things, not get sacked, not turn the ball over, doesn't have to throw for 300. I'm not quantifying he has to throw for 303 touchdowns. We'll know it. I've always said this. We'll know it when we see it, and we'll say, "Oh, the light's on. Justin's getting it." And I think we'll all understand it when we see it.
No, those are some really valid points. And I think the biggest thing, what I see from him this year when he's played, is he's less reliant on his legs. When last year, right, if plays weren't there, especially when he went on that streak, after Luke Getsy and him were on the same page, they got him running a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying run like last year, but when a play breaks down, scramble for 10, scramble for 12, get out of bounds, slide. And I think that's where he gets really confident. And I think it may be a thing he's in his head. He's like, I have to sit back and prove that I'm this great pocket passer. But his greatest strength is his legs, getting on the move, being able to scramble. Then you have to keep a spy guy. You have to bring an extra rusher. All of a sudden, that frees some other people. So take advantage of your legs when opportunities are there, right? If something opens up, why not run the ball? So that's what I want to see him do in the second half, right? I don't want to see the same amount of runs last year. But when the play is there, when you're able to scramble and the defense is giving you something, take that. You don't always have to throw the ball and prove that you're this amazing pocket passer. What separates him and a guy like Jalen Hurts is their ability to run. So I think that's his greatest strength. Tap into that. You don't get out of hand with it and get yourself injured like the year before, but be able to utilize that.
Corey, I've always wanted to do find a way where we can look at it tangibly, where I feel like early in a game when we see Fields go for a nice run of 15 or 20 yards early, kind of like a basketball player going and getting a breakaway dunk or hitting his first couple jump shots, he sort of gets a lather going, and it's what you mentioned about his confidence. So I think the point's well said. that, like, if you can just get him off, get him going with one of those runs, I feel like his passing gets more accurate that way. And absolutely, like, you should never take away a player's best strengths simply because you want him to get better in another area. You should be able to find that line of where you can do both. Because if you're robbing someone of their greatest strength, while you want him to get better in the pocket, you can still do both.
Exactly. And a big thing I noticed too is the games he played well, they had some quick 3-step rhythm throws. And he seemed to get very confident with that, throwing some darts in there to DJ Moore on those quick slants, quick outs. That's those two things, that and running, gets his confidence up. And I think Luke Getsy has to understand that. But not everything's going to be perfect play calling wise, right? It is what it is. But I think some of those things, we get him on the move, the quick rhythm throws, all of a sudden he looks that much more confident when you're doing that. Because even in the Green Bay game, the first game of the season, in that first half, he passed the ball pretty well. He looked pretty efficient. It was when the second half came that he looked all out of sorts, right? They were 5-step drops, keeping him in the pocket. He was holding the ball a little bit too long. But in that first half, he looked pretty efficient throwing the ball. He was throwing some darts. So get back to some of that stuff, because I think that's where he really gets confident.
Yeah. It's going to be super interesting here to see it, because I like, the one thing I've said is I don't think that they go over the top with their praise for him. So I really feel like it's an uphill battle at this point, where he's almost got to reclaim the quarterback position and he's got to win them back over, because I think if the season would end today, that Poles is ready to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, especially since it's not his guy either. So,
right.
His new regime, he's like, I'm not tied down to him. And there's people, because the thing about Justin Fields, like, there's people that would trade for him in a heartbeat, right? He has so much talent, and somebody would be like, I can make him great. I would love to have him. So I guess that's the part, like, when I'm thinking about it, right? Because I look at Tua, for example, right? Tua, they were ready to toss him to the side. He can't play. He can't throw. He's not efficient. And then all of a sudden, insert Mike McDaniel. Obviously, they have Tyreek Hill, but just look how much more efficient he's been these past 2 years. And the common denominator, right, is the play caller. So that's what's a little frustrating, because I understand, like, you have to play in whatever circumstance you're in. But I think that the play calling, that's, like I said earlier, is the most frustrating part, because you see examples of when a good play caller comes in, and then all of a sudden a player elevates his game to what he should be.
Well, and I think this game will be interesting to watch Ben Johnson. I don't know how much you guys in the past have talked about Ben Johnson, the play caller for Detroit, their offensive coordinator. He could have had a head coaching job last year. Like, the two names that we've brought up the most is Ben Johnson and Jim Harbaugh, if they do make a coaching change. Like, I just love what Ben Johnson does and what he has done to make Jared Goff, because there's no way that Jared Goff should be a top 3 or top 5 passer in the NFL. I know he's the number 1 overall pick, but he was just a throw-in a couple of years ago from the Rams. McVay, who's a great play caller, was done with him, and he said, I can't win it all with him. And what Ben Johnson's been able to do with him and this offense and the balance with running and what they're able to do, I think this, Corey, is going to be, for me, a good, just like, watch the difference between the two styles. And I'm going to, like, lovingly watch Ben Johnson here, because I do want a coaching change. Like, I'm very, very strong about that.
I'm the same way. We're on the same page with that. I think it needs to be done. The thing that I am, I think there's been so many different schools of thought about drafting a quarterback. And, I think ultimately, like you said, right, Ryan Poles is not his guy. So he's really considering all the options at this point. I'm just looking at it from a standpoint where I'm looking at, like, the best teams in the league, the most consistent, right? I look at Philly, like, how they built that team, right? With a great offensive line, great defensive line, and San Francisco as well, same thing. And I think people really sleep on the importance of defensive line. And look at the Bears the past 2 years, right? Defensive line, not able to generate pressure, not able to get off the field. It just goes hand in hand sometimes. And I think defense really wins championships. And they'll say, well, it doesn't translate to the offensive side. But what you're able to do is able to sack opposing quarterbacks, get the football back, get better field position. And so that's why I'm like, I'm kind of on the page of, yeah, if Justin Fields continues to do well, I would love to keep him, and that way you could free up some of your other needs. You got 2 first-round picks, you got some money in free agency, then you can address, some of the defensive line, get that 3 technique of the future, get a dominant pass rusher opposite Sweat, and then all of a sudden that defensive line looks a lot better. And then your defense as a whole, that whole rushing cover, kind of like we had with Lovie Smith, everything works a lot better, and then you're able to have a top 10 defense, and then all of a sudden you're able to have a play caller and build some weapons, additional weapons at receiver and offensive line as well. So that's why I'm really hoping he does well and he continues to prove his worth for this team in the future, so that way you can address other needs.
We're here with Marc Silverman here on Believe in Bears. We've just got a quick minute to go with you. A couple thoughts really quick from this awesome conversation the two of you are having. The first one is when Corey, when you said Ryan Poles isn't Justin Fields' guy, I just had to laugh because it's like a no shit thing with the Chicago Bears. Who's guy? Honestly, they never do it in a contextual order. Fun little also tidbit was that actually I shot a music video last week. I'm in LA, so forgive me. Shot a music video last week at Ben Johnson's old house when he used to coach for the Rams. And let me tell you guys, humble beginnings, not a Matt Nagy basement. I think he's got his nose in the book. I think it was a very modest house, nice little backyard, little smoker. That's about it. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there as a little characteristic of Ben Johnson as we watch him on Sunday. My final one for you before we get out of here. Forgive me, I just want to go off the board here really quick because I'm born and raised Chicago sports. If you cut me open, I bleed bear blood. And I've just been kind of looking around lately. And these last couple of years, look, they've been really tough on Chicago sports. I don't know if Connor Bedard is scoring a goal right now, but it's just been. I feel like we're a little bit in the dark ages. So I wanted to ask you, with your wealth, you've been around, you've seen it all. So I do want to ask you, there are 2 different eras in my lifetime that I find to be what we would call maybe golden eras of Chicago sports. And I just want to ask you which one you think you would prefer and which one you think is probably better. They're not maybe perfectly symmetrical in timeline, but I'm going to throw them out to you. The first one is 1989 to 2000. Obviously, we've got Jordan titles. We've got 6 titles, 8 conference finals. Cubs 2 playoff appearances, 3 winning seasons. Sammy Sosa, White Sox 2 MVPs, 2 playoff appearances, 7 winning seasons. Blackhawks 8 playoff appearances. Bears only 3 playoff appearances. And then we've had what we've just come off of, Mark. 2005, 2018. We've got a White Sox World Series. We've got 3 cups from the Blackhawks. We've got a Cubs World Series. We got 5 playoff appearances from them, 3 NFL Championship Series, 1 MVP, 1 Cy Young. I mean, the Bulls, we had the Derrick Rose MVP, 1 conference finals, but again, 11 playoff appearances. We had 1 certain Corey Wooten during this particular era. So I want to ask you, is it the titles? Which one did you think you probably enjoyed more? Which one's more the golden era of Chicago sports, in your opinion?
It's a great question. So then you're kicking out the 85 Bears aren't a part of any of this. This is right.
Yes. Yeah. And even the 87, 88 team, I kind of stopped there too as well, because obviously, yeah.
So like I waited so long. I was in 16. What was I? So I was 45 years old when the Cubs won the World Series. Like I waited so long for that. Like I was at Game 7 in 2003. The game after the Bartman game, I told myself I wasn't going to go. I was covering Bears practice that day. And I actually went with Jim Chrisman, Corey. I don't know if he was one of the PR guys back then, but I went to Game 7. We sat in the first row of Game 7 in 2003. So, like, I waited forever for the Cubs. I was at both the Game 7 of the 2016 World Series, and it was at Game 4 of the 05 World Series when the White Sox won. Like, I feel like I'm in this really cool group. I got to be at the Jordan last shot game, 1998. I was there covering it as a reporter, and I was a fan at the 2 clinching games for Chicago Sports World Series. Like, I don't think there's a big group of us who were at all 3 of those events. I feel like that's got to be a group of like 50 or less, or 100 or less. So I'm very fortunate, but I'm going to go like, you can't kick out Michael Jordan, and I grew up a diehard Bulls fan even before Michael. So I can't. That's like saying New York sports without Babe Ruth. If you can put the 27 Yankees in there, I've got to take the 90. You had it in where I had all the 90s Bulls, right? So give me 91 through 98, and then I've got those Hawks teams with Roenick and Chelios and those really good teams. And I get the Waddle Bears then. There and there, right?
Ooh, the Waddle era versus the Corey Wooten era. I see what we're doing here. I got to go with my co-hosts. I probably go 05 to 18. Right? This is what we do.
Yeah, that's loyalty. So yeah, I think, but that's really good the way, and it's more balanced. But yeah, because of the Bulls, I'm gonna just the dominance and probably the greatest team of all time. And the greatest athlete of all time, I can't eliminate that one.
Yeah, that's a
no better to ask.
There. MJ, this is influence to this day. Look at the Jordan sneaker. My sister works for Jordan Brand.
Oh,
they sell the same sneaker every year, and like clockwork, it sells out like this. That's just like he could spend all his money, gamble this, that, the other. He'll be set for life because of the amount of money Jordan sneakers generate. Because
here, look, let me grab one of this here. I'll be right back.
Grab it. We gotta get.
I'll tell you,
we gotta get a Wooten driver.
I know,
Corey Wooten driver.
But think about this: no other player has ever had a shoe that is sold like that ever.
This is the first.
Kobe tried, Shaq tried. Oh, I own that. I had that.
Yeah.
Do you have the cereal in it though?
No, but
you gotta eat it. You'll be dunking in no time, man.
Joey,
we got a cereal off. I don't, but this does. I got my Rizzos.
What's that from? 16 or 15?
Yeah, it's from the Family Foundation.
I've got cereal in here from 1991. This is the 91 I can't frame.
Let's test the expiration date. Let's see if that's really.
I was gonna say we now know Tom Waddle's future demise. One day he wanders into this room hungry and he takes a bite of these Wheaties and
dies.
We all know what happens next. Marc Silverman, man, such a pleasure, man. Such an honor to have you on. Thank you so much for taking the time. You're so busy. So just to carve out just a few minutes with us, we really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Stay Silvy Strong. If you just Google that name, I'm sure you can figure out a great way to donate to any of the fantastic causes going in and around the Chicago area. Thanks so much for joining. Hope we can do it again sometime.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Marc. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks.
You got it. See you guys. Appreciate you guys. Good talking to you.
Take care.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Be well.